Hello, podcast world, fellow horticulturists, lovers of plants, gardeners, family, and friends. Welcome to Shrubby Buddies, the podcast, friends with woodies for garden goodies. I'm host Matt Guthrie.
And I'm host Tim Fleischer. Coming at you from Central Ohio, Zone 6B. We're just a couple of public horticulturists and certified arborists with experience in education, landscape design, gardening, retail, and wholesale.
So grab a drink, polish your pruners, dust off that kneeling pad, and let's get down to business. Hey, Shrubby Buddies, and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I am host Matthew C. Guthrie I, joined with Timmy Touchdown Fleischer. Timothy Daniel, how are you?
Good, Matt. Hi, how are you? Matthew Field Goal Guthrie?
Field Goal Guthrie. Yeah, I'm good, Tim.
Good.
Thank you for asking. So, Timmy, what's up? What is up, my dude? What's good? What's good and new in your world? Anything fun you want to share with the listeners?
I always start with weather. The rain's falling down, and I like that.
Yeah, you are kind of like a little weatherman.
Well, we shouldn't be having water politics at work in May. So, Mother Nature should be watering our plants.
Correct.
So, today, she's taking care of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mother Nature. Not a whole lot new in my world. Same shit, different week. Work. Getting plants in the ground.
Matt says work like it's like he hates it. Like work. But you like it.
I do like it.
I mean, there's parts, it's work. So
I don't mean that in a negative way by any means.
Kind of came off that way.
My bad. Yeah.
How was the garden center this past weekend? You had to stay a little later than usual, didn't you?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
I lied.
No later than usual. It was fine though. I mean, it was wasn't Mother's Day weekend, but I still felt like we were we did good. As Bob would say, we didn't hit a grand slam or a home run, but
solid triple.
Mm-hmm. A solid triple for the weekend.
And are the baskets still the popular pick since Mother's Day's over? Or
yeah, lots of baskets flying out, but a lot of people in for like veggies and herbs.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Veggies, herbs, of course the annuals.
Suckers. I've had my tomatoes in for a month.
Yeah, well,
and I'm already picking radishes.
Okay, well, congratulations, Bob. Thanks. Not everybody is you.
I feel like a little attitude-y today.
You seem a little. Maybe it's that Long Road gin that you're drinking over there.
Could be.
Yeah, so garden center was good. Lots of annuals, veggies, selling some shrubs. People are starting to look at the perennials, So yeah, it's going good, man.
Good. I got my cottage garden in. That's what I did this week.
Yeah, it's going good, my dude.
You helped me out with that.
I did.
You took my crew to help you plant tropicals while I laid out plants, because laying out plants is something that you just need time.
Yep.
And you don't need interruptions.
Correct.
Or having to worry about like keeping other people busy.
Correct.
So I got them laid out. You came over with the crew. We got the cheat codes out, started drilling them and filling them.
And we knocked those bad boys out, didn't we?
Yeah, and it's given me very cottagey vibes. I didn't tell you this, but I don't know how it's going to shake out as far as when the plants grow up, how things are going to jive together, but I'm super duper happy with every single plant species in that garden.
That's great.
So that's what like a year and a half worth of planting will do. You really...
And I'm really glad that your year and a half planting of the cottage garden is giving you cottagey vibes. Because if it was giving you any other vibes, there'd be a freaking problem, Bob. So I'm happy for that.
Yeah.
But,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, other than that, we had a special little Zoom meeting interview thing this morning with one of the editors for Nursery Management Magazine.
That's right. Did we mention that on a previous podcast that the magazine, the Nursery Management Magazine reached out to us?
Yeah.
And wanted to do a little get to know you story on us for the issue that drops during Cultivate.
Well, it drops. I want to say that it drops in June,
But
it's
it'll
the
be
cultivate issue.
It's the cultivate issue. Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's fun, and it'll be on their website. The video the Zoom video.
Yeah.
So yeah, had that. Other than that, dude,
That was fun. I enjoyed that.
rolling along here in the month of May.
Mm-hmm.
May's almost gone. Then we'll be into June
Yeah.
and summer.
I don't want that.
Here we are.
That's okay.
Anything else fun with you, or is that it?
Life shall move on.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything.
Nothing. Well, one service announcement I want to make before we move on to the next segment is next week we will not be doing a podcast. So Memorial Day's Monday. You're going to be out of town all weekend long for a soccer tournament up in Michigan, and with Memorial Day, it's just we got a lot going on this coming weekend and next week. So we just didn't see how the stars would align for us to get together and do an episode for next week. So we're going to take a pass on next week.
We're going to be out of town, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And then Monday we don't have work, but we will be recovering from being out of town. And it's your first day off of work in like 28,000 days. So I think you're going to enjoy that. And then we would typically record Tuesday, but that Tuesday is default our Monday. And I have a no record on Monday policy.
Okay.
Did you know that?
I didn't know
Well,
that.
now you do.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't record on Mondays.
Noted, my dude.
So yeah, we're gonna take the week off and finish up our 3-part series the following week.
Okay. Yeah. So before we get into part 2 of our 3-part series, we're gonna stigma anther pollen style. What's a bloomin' crocodile? We're gonna hit up what's a bloomin'.
So catchy.
Yeah, Timmy.
Whenever I'm making my notes, like I'll just be walking and I'll see something blooming. I got to add it into my notes for the week, or else I'll forget. But when I pull up that notes, that song always pops into my head.
I love it.
So
I love it.
Yeah. So what's blooming on this fine day in May? Might I say, Coosa dogwood we've been waiting for this one. It's covered in blooms.
Bro, don't even get me started on the
We
Coosa
were working today, driving through a neighborhood, and I think you pointed out every single Coosa dogwood that you saw.
I'm pretty sure
Like
I did.
you were like, look at that's a nice Coosa. Oh, look at that nice. I love those Coosa dogwoods.
I'd say it every year from the time that Cornus Florida starts until Cornus Coosa. It's like, this is why the Coosas and the native flowering dogwoods are some of my favorite ornamental trees ever.
There you go.
So that's that.
I'd agree. Another one blooming right now is tree lilac. It's kind of blah, but worth noting. Wild black cherry, which is our native cherry. It's a large tree in the woods typically. And then on to shrubs. We noticed some 9-bark blooming today. It was one of the like coppery dark leaf ones. The ones I have at my house that are like the amber jubilee with the orange leaves are not blooming yet.
Okay.
Just to make note. I noticed rugosa rose blooming as well as knockouts, and it looks like about any type of rose out there has got some blooms on it.
Yeah.
So, but those are the two that I identified. The arrowwood viburnum, which is a fantastic native viburnum, is blooming right now. And then on to perennials. Thrift has been blooming. Baptisia is starting to hit its stride right now.
Baptisia. How do you say it?
I say Baptisia, but
me too. But
wise man once told me, as long as you spell it right.
I was on the phone today with Brent Horvath, and he was calling it Baptisia.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of other plant people call it that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I could see Megan calling it that. My wife,
She would.
because she calls Agastache Agostiki.
Yeah.
She's gonna kill me because she's always very worried about how she's pronouncing things, and I always remind her a wise man once told me it doesn't matter how you say it as long as you spell it right.
Who was the wise man?
Pablo Jordan.
Ooh, Pablo.
Yes.
Right on. Okay, keep going.
There are a lot of irises in bloom right now. Last week we mentioned the bearded irises. They're still blooming, but we've noticed the Siberian iris and the purple flame iris, which is a
Versicolor?
I like it when you say versicolor.
Versicolor.
Iris versicolor.
I just said versicolor. Though.
I know, but you usually say
Okay,
versicolor.
my bad.
Moonshine yarrow. I've noticed that's about the only one I've seen that's like truly blooming. I've seen some cracks of color on others, but the moonshine's getting after it. The large flowered clematis vines, columbine, geum, and lucerne blue-eyed grass, which is a plant that's going to come up on our main topic today.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Is that on the list of stuff? Huh?
Yes, but what's interesting about the blue-eyed grass is as I look out your window right now, yours doesn't appear to be blooming because it's rainy and cloudy, and the blooms will close up when it's dark, when it's overcast and dark.
Well, isn't that just fun?
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, mine was wide open yesterday and looking awesome, and then as the night fell upon us, they closed up, and then today they've stayed closed. I would assume just because it's been cloudy and rainy. Yeah. So, but maybe later this week the sun will pop out, peek out, and those bad boys will show their faces again. So looking forward to it.
There you go.
On to this week's topic. So 3-part series on foliage. Last week we did chunky foliage. If you haven't listened to that, shame on you. Go back and listen to it. So part 2, we're going to continue this series, and we're going to highlight perennials with like strappy grass-like leaves. Also give you some suggestions on what to pair with these things. So we'll just kind of roll right into that, huh?
Yeah. The strappy foliage, the grass-like foliage, it pretty much covers all your grasses, and we're going to talk about some of those today. But there's also a lot of non-grasses on this list that will do the trick. And we were talking before the episode, like, what does this foliage do for you, for your garden? And it provides a couple of things. Some of this stuff we're going to talk about flows. It has a nice kind of wavy flow to it. Just think of kind of how a grass grows and then flows over kind of like a waterfall. But then you've got grasses that stick up very erect. And perennials with strappy foliage that stick up very erect. So
erect.
It's two ends of the spectrum on what this foliage can do as it contrasts with some of that chunky foliage that we talked about in the first episode of this series.
Yeah, I think it helps break up some of that chunky foliage. Although some of this strappy foliage can be chunky, but some of the finer textured stuff helps break up some of that chunkiness.
Yeah, we've got plants on this list that have, super wide strappy foliage, like think of like a belt. And then we've got super fine chunky foliage, like think about like your turf grass.
Yeah.
And then everything in between. So
sweet. Well, like the strappy foliage, let's get erect and flow right into this, bub.
I'm already erect.
I know you are. All right, well, here we go. All right, first up on the list, allium. So the ornamental onions, the perennial alliums that you see more ornamentally used, not the bulb alliums. I mean, I guess bulb alliums would work too, but I don't really look at those for the foliage. We're talking like allium millennium, summer beauty,
Medusa, little blue eddy,
blue eddy,
little
bubble bath,
chivet.
So all of these guys is what we're talking about. Just this kind of green grass-like strappy foliage, a little bit chunkier than a normal grass, very glossy foliage, nice deep green. Some of them have more of a blue hue to them, like the Medusa.
Clean foliage. I feel like allium comes up in almost every episode we do about perennials. Mm-hmm. It's just a solid choice. And,
it is a solid choice.
And even when it's not blooming, it's charming because it never looks ragged.
Yeah.
All
year from the time it starts coming up and clear on through winter even. I think it's a great plant. But it pairs well with we wrote down butterfly weeds. So yeah, if you're throwing some allium in, it'll pair well with a lot of different things, but it seems like the butterfly weeds a lot of times will be flowering at the same time as the allium.
Right.
And that purple globe on the allium just really, really contrasts well with the butterfly weed.
Mm-hmm.
In the butterfly weed foliage isn't so much that it overpowers like the allium. So, yeah.
And last week we talked about alchemilla lady's mantle.
Yeah.
As
Pairing
a
up with
chunky foliage, and we paired that with allium. So there's not a whole lot of things it doesn't go.
So let's just do a triple combo: allium, butterfly weed, and lady's mantle.
Boom.
Bada bing, bada ching.
That's what we would call
Take it to the
a
bank.
grouping.
Yep. So,
or a triple combo.
what do you think about Leatris, bub?
Yeah, that's a spiked gay feather, and I do love it, and I think it's underappreciated. I also think it's a really great replacement, Leatris, and I'm talking about the blooms here for what's the invasive we talked about that grows by ponds?
Oh.
Spiked pink flowers. Yeah. Throwing a wrench into things right now.
God, why did you ask me?
Purple loosestrife. I think that Leatris is one of the best replacements for purple loosestrife. It's native. It's a butterfly freaking magnet, but the foliage is very strappy, and it comes out in like a big clump. All seems to emanate from the same point at the bottom, and then as it grows, that stuff kind of grows taller, and then it blooms later in the season with tall purple, pink, or white spikes, and it's just a great native.
Yeah.
And we have it paired with echinacea here.
Love it.
And I have it planted with echinacea in our garden at home, along with some rattlesnake master. And it's kind of like the little bit of like a wild prairie-like look in that side of the garden. Yeah. So I really like that.
Like a little meadow. Yeah. A little nook of meadowness.
So don't sleep on the gay feather. It's one of those ones you just wouldn't think to get at the garden center this time of year because it doesn't look like much.
No, we sell it.
But
we've been selling it.
Have you?
It's not flowering, but we still sell it. Yeah. People come in and are just like, they know what they want when they're looking for these like pollinator gardens and stuff. And they always go after the Leatris.
Yeah. Takes a good wide range of soils. Very tough plant.
Yeah. So for sure.
And it reseeds itself around. At least it does for me.
Bellum canda, another one. What's the common name on Bellum canda? Something lily, right?
Blackberry lily.
Yeah, blackberry lily. But it's kind of got this like irisy type feel to it, or lily type feel to it.
In fact, it has been classified as an iris before, and you might see it that way if you look it up. So it's so closely related to iris that some people have even lumped them into the same genus. But so it has almost exact like iris foliage. But what you get is a different type of a similar, but not just like an iris flower bloom. And it's called blackberry lily. Did I say that right?
Yeah, blackberry. Yep.
Because the seeds are like little jet black balls, like the size of babies, but they're all packed together and they look like a little blackberry.
Yeah, so very attractive plant. Pairs well with pairs nice with penstemon.
Mm-hmm. Like a purple, like a dark colored foliage penstemon with that orange flower.
The orange flower against that dark purple foliage of the penstemon or beard tongue, commonly called beard tongue, is just fire.
And
very great.
And the cultivar I have in my garden is freckleface.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the most
common one.
Yeah, the most common one.
It seems to be a little more compact. Some of them will shoot these flowers way off on stalks, and the freckleface stays a little more compact, but it has that foliage that I said is like very strappy but thick like a belt.
Okay, yeah.
I
would agree with that.
Similar to iris, which is what is next on our list, and so we kind of put those together. But
yeah, so we have iris down here, any of the irises, but we have it. I was trying to think of something that would pair nice with iris, and there's a lot of different things that'll pair nice with iris. Iris is going to be heavier on the blooms this time of the year, like late spring, just before kind of summer hits, you're going to get your iris flowers. But the strappy foliage of the iris goes in really nice with Vernonia. So maybe some of the smaller butterfly weeds, I'm thinking like Southern Cross. What's wrong?
Not butterfly weed. I just don't want to mislead.
I meant, yeah. Why did it? Vernonia.
It's like something to do with metal. Ironweed.
Sorry, everyone. We're so used to talking like with the botanical names that sometimes the common names slip our mind. But anyways, back on track here. Vernonia or ironweed. Some of the smaller ones, the foliage is very similar to that of Amsonia. We use Amsonia a lot, so I wanted to think of something different. But the iris is going to give you flowering earlier in the year, and the Vernonia is going to give you that late summer flower.
Yeah.
So
And just a note on the iris, we can't just say Vernonia is a good pairing with it and leave it at that, because unlike the alliums, which are all typically dry, loving plants with shitty soil, iris has quite a range, and there's plenty of iris, like the bearded iris, that likes the dry soil and does just fine. But then there's like the iris versicolor that's a wet loving iris.
Correct.
And if you planted that in an area like that allium and salvia like, it would just slowly die.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't make it unless you had some supplemental water. So, because I know you used it in the bottom of your rain garden. So.
Yeah, I have it. I have that iris paired up with. I have the purple flame iris, and I have it paired up with the Persicaria golden arrow. So the yellow foliage with the red flower.
Yeah. And you have it down there with some swamp milkweed.
Swamp milkweed, and there's some Joe Pye weed. There's a lot of stuff.
So iris just has a large footprint as far as the different species. There's the small bulb-like ones that have come and gone months ago, and then the beardeds and the Siberians and the versicolors that are starting to bloom now. So, and then you've got, again, we're talking about foliage here. There's ones with variegated leaves.
Yeah.
So white and green, yellow and green striped leaves.
And some of those flowers just smell amazing.
They do.
For sure.
Yeah.
What do we got next? Do we want to talk about bub rub?
Well, I put Sweet Kate spiderwort on this list, and I don't want you to get that confused with plain old spiderwort, because I hate plain old spiderwort.
Hate it.
I hate it.
I wish they could see your face.
Yeah,
Scout.
I'm so mad about it.
I hate it.
When we bought our house and we started, investing and changing over the landscape, that was like one of the hardest things to get rid of. The spider, just like the plain old spiderwort.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like the native spiderwort in like a prairie setting, but not in my garden. I just don't. It's very difficult to get rid of. But the Sweet Kate has really bright yellow chartreuse. In fact, we're going to have to throw one up on the gram this week. But mine is in full bloom right now, and it's like these really nice bright purple flowers atop this chartreuse foliage. Mm-hmm. Doesn't get much better than that. So it's a really beautiful plant.
What would you pair, or what have you paired Sweet Kate spiderwort with?
Well, we have it close to in my garden, we have it close to lady's mantle.
Oh.
And so
Common theme here.
Mm-hmm, that strappy foliage looks good with that chunky leaf. Yeah. And it's like that dull, muted bluish foliage along with that bright yellow of the spiderwort. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Daylilies. I mean, there's like 18 billion different daylilies out there. So pick your daylily. There's better ones out there than the Stella d'Oras and the Happy Returns, but we need to mention daylilies because some daylilies do serve a place in the garden. Some of the flowers on these things, some of the bigger ones, the more one and done type daylilies really, really do shine. Just don't do your whole landscape in daylilies or you'll be very disappointed. But we just have it paired up with catnip, nepeta. So just that strappy foliage, allowing it to kind of lay down on top of the catnip some, and then those pretty bright colored flowers shooting out above the...
Daylilies typically come in the warm colors, the oranges and the reds and the yellows. So those go really well with like the blue flowers of the nepetas.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, man.
But yeah, no need to spend too much time on daylily, although there are people who breed daylilies.
Yeah, there's daylily collectors and breeders.
But they're like true daylilies. They get this big, beautiful flower that's just like a mosaic of color, and then it's gone in a day.
Yeah.
So I mean, stuff like that doesn't do a whole lot for me. So
yeah.
Next on the list is liriopes and mondo grasses. We kind of lump those together. Neither are an actual grass. So liriope is often referred to as monkey grass or plantain lily, and the mondo grasses are also not grasses. These bloom with flowers that are not indicative of grasses, but they look very much like grasses. And you don't grow these things for the blooms usually, right?
No, I wouldn't.
They're there. It's kind of like a coleus bloom.
It's there. But
It's there, but you're growing it as more of a ground cover in very difficult places. And pretty much anything can pair well with things like this. I have digitalis on my list because I have it paired with the Carillon digitalis at home, the mondo grass. I think it looks good with that, but I particularly like the black mondo grass.
Yeah, you do.
So, and it's kind of tough here. It's very slow to get going, and you mulch over it once and it's not coming back. In fact, the contractors did that at Vets.
Oh, did they?
Mulch. Anyways, don't get me mad right now, but I really like the black one. I just think it's fun. But
yeah, I've seen it used. One of the nicest plantings of black mondo I saw was in the Japanese gardens at Atlanta Botanical Gardens.
I knew you were going to say somewhere south because it does much better in the south. We're kind of borderline with the hardiness here.
Yeah, but it was just really nice. They used it as a little crack filler, if you will, in between some crack filler in between some like flagstones that were strategically placed through the Japanese garden.
Yeah.
I know I've got pictures somewhere of that, but yeah, it was just a really good use of black mondo grass. And when I saw it, I was like, Tim would like this, very, very, very nice stand of it. Very healthy, showing a lot of good vigor the way they were using it. So,
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. And there's a dwarf mondo grass, which I really like. And it's another one that's tough for us to grow. We do great with it at home because we can give it some extra irrigation, but at work
you remember
struck out
last year or whenever, a couple of years ago when I was ordering.
I know. I planted like 6,000 of them.
It was literally like, it was like 1,500 mondo grass. I'm like, what the hell? Are you serious? So I called Dave over at Birdie Ball. I'm like, Dave, can you find this anywhere? And I forget where he found it. He found it from a grower down south.
It was in some cute little 2-inch pots.
Yeah, it was like it's a wholesaler down south, like ground cover or something or other. It's like, he's like, yeah, they were probably looking at me like, why in the hell are you ordering 2,000 mondo grass? But here we are.
Whatever. And moving on to the Liriope that we talked about here, just a great, if you're looking for something that needs sun or shade or wet or dry or really anything, and you just need to cut ground cover for a tough spot, Liriope.
Yeah, I use Liriope. I don't use it a lot, but I use it there's some parking lot islands that I've used it in where it's just I don't want to mulch this.
Yeah.
I don't feel like planting some big crazy landscape in it, so I'm just going to load this thing up with Liriope, and it takes off. It spreads rhizomia, right? Yeah. How come I can never say that? It spreads by rhizomes, and
that's a good way to say it.
And it just kind of fills the area, and it just creates this really nice mat of
fills a gap.
Green foliage. Yep, gap filler. Staying on the grass thing, one grass that I really like, it takes a while to get going, but once it gets going, it really does things for me in the shade garden, and that's Japanese forest grass. Just this nice, flowy, movie, wavy, yellow or green grass that looks beautiful in the shade garden or brightens areas up in the shade garden.
We mentioned it last week, the cultivar Aureola.
Oh, yeah,
we did. Remember that?
I do.
As a companion to something?
I don't remember what it was a companion to, but yeah.
There's variegated forms, and then there's chartreuse forms, and like Matt said, that it's very slow to get going. But if you've ever seen a really healthy old stand of Hakanakloa Japanese forest grass, it's freaking amazing.
And I love it when people use it in these shade water gardens, there's waterfalls, and the Hakanakloa is just tickling over.
It looks like a water. It just looks like a waterfall of plants. It's beautiful.
So we like it paired up with the stilbe
for sure.
False spirea, and the flower. The bright colors of the astilbe really pair nice with the thinner strappy foliage of the Hakanakloa. I've seen it used in a really weird spot in downtown Traverse City, Michigan. and they have this like kind of mass planting of it on the corner of, I don't know, maybe Chase Bank in downtown there. But it's paired up nice, and they have it with Actea behind it.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks really, really nice there. And they have some like variegated, maybe hydrangea macrophilia in there. But anyways, it's a beautiful planting. Every time I walk by it, I'm like, shit, I got to stop and get a picture of this.
Is it part of the Banks landscape?
Yeah, it's part of the Banks landscape. So
Banks could use better landscapes.
Yeah, so across the whole front of this thing.
Fantastic.
You've got
you sent me pictures.
And there's
of
like,
I was like, that's
really
a bank?
nice like hellebore. They have this beautiful shade garden across the front with hellebores and the Actea and all these hydrangeas.
Next time you're up there, you should stop in.
How about you just go up with
and
me
they're gonna
and you can
they're going to be like,
yourself,
would you like to make a deposit or a what's the one when you take
withdrawal?
A withdrawal? And you're like, neither. I want to talk to someone about the Hakanakloa.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, bless you.
Are you trying to rob us?
Yeah.
Anyways, great little thing there.
Yeah.
What are we pointing out there?
Nephofia.
Oh,
what do you think of Nephofia?
Did you want me to say it?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Nephofia.
Yeah. Red hot poker plant.
Yes, that is the last non-grass perennial on our list.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
Non-grass perennial.
Okay.
And it's Nephofia Red Hot Poker. And the star of the show with these is really the bloom. I mean, it's namesake, the Red Hot Poker. It just literally looks like a stick on fire when it's just coming out of that grass-like foliage. Mm-hmm. But it does have the grass-like foliage, and it will add that to your garden. The only thing I'll say about it, as far as what can make it a little tricky, is I have a lot of trouble growing it in our heavy clay soils.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say I've tried it and have failed, and I've just kind of like I've tried it once or twice and failed, and it's just like, nah, not anymore. I'm not going to try it anymore.
Yeah, it's a cool plant. My parents have really good luck with it in their soils up by Lake Erie. But whenever anyone that we work with orders it, I'm just like, good luck. I hope you had better luck than I do. Yeah. But it's a really neat plant. So,
and if you can get that stuff going, Orangium. What do you think about pairing up with a little
Orangium or Echinops? Any
Echinops,
globe thistle or the
sea holly. Yeah, for sure.
With those blue flowers with those red and orange and yellow blooms, looks really great together.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the last of the non-grass like plants.
Yeah, it's a good little list. But we do have some grasses, some true grasses.
Well, right? I would hope so. We're talking about getting your strap on, so we're highlighting perennials with strappy grass-like leaves. So it'd be kind of silly if we left grasses out, right?
True.
And you know that we're suckers for grass. So big blue stem is going to be one of your bigger ones. Nice prairie plant, handles the soil great. We've talked about it before. We've raved about it before. We're going to continue to rave about some of these grasses because they're just that kick-ass. But any of the big blue stems, I am really digging Brent's introduction up at Intrinsic Perennials, the Andropogon Blackhawks. Blackhawks. Big blue stem. And I love these big blue stems and little blue stems, which we'll get to. But I love it when they're paired up with any of the echinaceas. My favorite echinacea is Echinacea pallida, or is that just prairie coneflower, I think? Is that right?
Could be.
I think. So
I call it strappy petaled echinacea.
There we go. So we're going to have a strappy petaled flower with some strappy petaled grass, but Echinacea pallida with big blue stem.
That's actually a big part of my cottage garden that we just did.
Big blue stem and Echinacea pallida?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well...
That's like the highlight of the tall point in the garden.
And the little blue... Well, you don't have any little blue stems in there, but that's one of these that we have on here is a medium-sized grass along with Bouteloua. And you have Bouteloua honeycomb plants.
Bouteloua is blue grama grass.
Yeah, blue grama
common
grass.
Name.
Yep, and then the little blue stem or Schizocarium, Scoparium. But there again, pallida could be interchanged with that. Like we have talked about how much we love the Rebecchias paired up with the Boutelouas. Mm-hmm. I know you were like, I love Rebecchia, paired up with this,
I do.
right? But I mean, you could switch that out, and echinacea looks great in it. There's a great stand of the echinacea and Bouteloua down at Riverside Crossing.
I think the echinacea works so good with the little blue stem because it has the little blue stem takes on like those pink and purple hues in the leaves. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and then I love the Rudbeckia with the blue grama grass.
Okay.
Saw that in Denver, not at the Botanic Gardens, but somewhere we were at on the PPA trip out there, and I just fell in love with that pairing.
Yeah.
So
it's a good pairing. I mean, I think really you could pair so much stuff up with these grasses. I mean, you just walk through a prairie.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, there's big blue stem, there's little blue stem, and just look at the stuff that's growing around it, and you're going to see like the echinaceas and the Rudbeckias,
the milkweeds,
and the milkweeds, and the Eryngium yuccifolium, rattlesnake master. You're going to see all of this stuff in the yarrows, and you're going to say, "No, I mean, you know."
And folks, there might be some of you saying, "Oh, they're starting to talk about grasses. I'm going to turn it off. Those things are boring." You need to add some of these grasses to your garden. I know it's boring to go to the garden center and being like, I'm buying an ornamental grass. I just mow grass all day long, and now I'm buying a grass. But what those grasses do is help set off everything else in your garden. Not to mention some of these grasses we're talking about are just as colorful, if not more, than the perennials we're talking about. They don't have the big flashy blooms, but the colors of the foliage are like metallic and iridescent and
blues and pinks and reds and blacks.
Yeah.
And the flower of the Bouteloua looks like a little grasshopper flying through the sky.
It does.
Just Google some of this stuff that we're talking about, and you'll see like, oh, okay, yeah, that's way prettier. You know, it's funny because I have that pollinator garden planted out by my mailbox, and you know, I've had people ask about the flowers, but you know, a lot of people have asked about that have walked by. What is that? When because I have that standing ovation little blue stem in there, and when people walk by, they're like, "What is that grass that you have growing in there?"
Yeah.
I love that, and I've never seen it before. And it's like, well, I mean, you've seen little blue stem, you've drove down the highway before,
Right,
and glanced to the left or the right, and you've seen it. But that's what this is. It's like an ornamental.
Yeah,
cultivar,
and people are used to like the miscanthus and the Carl Forester, and it's just like,
well, Carl Forester,
yeah, but it's like, man, a grass can take on that kind of color. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
don't sleep on the grasses, folks.
And then one of our favorite is Cecillaria or autumn grass,
and that's the small grass on our list.
Cecillaria autumnalis. Now, there's a lot of different Cecillarias, but we've been using a lot of the Cecillaria autumnalis, and we have been using a hybrid. They're really not sure the parentage of the plant, but it's Greenleaf's hybrid. And it's very similar to what you see with autumn wargrass, but probably a little bit smaller in stature. And it may have a little bit more vigor than the regular autumn.
But I've never planted one without good vigor.
Yeah. So the autumn wargrasses, I use them all the time. You know, I could just close my eyes and throw a dart at something, and whatever it hits, I'm going to say, yeah, that'll pair well with the autumn grass. Yeah. So we have it paired up with salvia, and I've used, you know, I have a lot of the Greenleaf hybrid in my front perennial gardens, and you know, I've got salvia caradona is flowering right now, which looks wonderful, and it looks wonderful shooting up out of the autumn grass. But you know, I've got areas of the autumn grass in there where I've got butterfly weed shooting up through it, the plum drops, sanguisorba coming up through it. Just any of these bigger perennials that you can just allow to shoot up through that stuff.
Yeah,
and fantastic.
And with the Cecillaria, we talk about it a lot, but I'm hoping that someone's listening that's growing plants, because this is the ornamental grass for small landscapes. And it's really hard to find. Like, we can find it pretty easily, but I mean, you're not walking into too many local garden centers and finding it.
Well, you say we can find it easily, and we can find it from a few different vendors, and we're having to buy 50 of them in a landscape plug.
Right.
It's not something that we find at wholesalers growing in quarts or gallons.
No, absolutely not. And it needs to be because that's one of the big trends is the smaller landscapes, the smaller homes, gardening in smaller spaces, right? So,
yeah, I mean, people people come in and buy the shit out of the Elijah Blue fescue,
which sucks.
and some of these other smaller like pennisedums and things like that. What's the one, Hamlin or whatever?
Yeah.
Carly Rose. I mean, I know
Real
those
short.
are going to get a little bit bigger, but anything,
They don't live very long.
anything, and they spread like freaking crazy, dude. Like some of those pennisedums just go wild in the landscape, right?
Yeah.
So any place where you need like a smaller ornamental grass, to break up some of the textures in your garden or to fill an area in, find Ceciliaria, grow that shit.
Yeah.
Plant it. You'll love it. I promise. So I digress.
Yes.
Carrots.
That's okay.
Carrots.
Yeah, I'm going to let you just take control of the Carex, and I'll just chime in as needed.
Carex divulsa.
Well, first of all, okay. I'll chime in right away.
Chime in.
Carex is a sedge.
Yes.
So it's not a true grass, but for all intents and purposes, it's a grass.
Yes.
Like it's not technically defined that way, but it can be used that way. And what's neat about the Carexes is, unlike our ornamental grasses, which 99.9% of them need full sun, the Carexes, some of them grow in full sun, but a lot of them will do great in full shade.
Yeah, they're a real utilitarian plant in that, like you said, you can do full sun, you can do full shade. Some of the Carexes you have to watch. They need water. They need moisture. If they don't have that, they will die. And then others will do just fine in just average to dry soil, and
If you're looking for a good Carex guide, go to is it Walters?
do they have a good Carex guide in there?
No, what's the Carex guide?
Hoffman Nursery.
I got Hoffman and Walters confused. Sorry,
really,
about
for
that.
any of the
I'll never do that again.
Really, for any of the grasses, whether that be grasses or Carex, and now they're even dabbling into some like little dibble dabble. They're getting into some perennials too, but their expertise is grasses.
They have a great website. They're wholesalers, but if you need like a reference point for, man, I like these Carexes they're talking about, and I've got an area that's in full sun and it has medium moisture. They have this great chart that just lays all that out for you.
It's fantastic. But yeah, Carex divulsa is one that I like to use. Extremely tough. It can take some, I wouldn't put it in full sun, but it can take some sun. It can take the shade. It doesn't mind dry soil. Very utilitarian plant. Works great in mass with stuff coming out of it, like as a base layer to a kind of a shady matrix type planting. But
we'll pop some pictures of it on the Facebook because you've got the nice planting of it over by the rec center, and it's gorgeous right now.
Yeah, and
not the Facebook, and then Instagram, whatever, both.
The gram. But spedgies, dude. Some spagilia growing up through that. Think about it.
Get me hot.
Think about that Carex just dancing in the wind with these bright red Indian pinks just shooting up out of there. Big old clumps of it.
I love it.
Carex Blue Zingers, another one that we like to use. Little bit different form, I think, than the Carex divulsa. It's got a little bit more of a free flowy type form, kind of moves in the wind, but it's just got this real pretty blue foliage on it.
Certainly not erect, very flowing, very droopy.
Very droopy, not erect, a little more flaccid, but works really well in the shade. I've never really used it in full sun, so I can't say what it would do in that. I've always put it in areas where it's getting like shade to part sun.
It's doing great.
Is it? Okay.
It's doing great in full sun.
All right.
It is.
Is it getting any additional water?
No.
Okay.
It got watered all last season, and this season's it's coming back with a vengeance.
There you have it, folks. It's working. And the area that he's talking about is a very it's getting like 85 hours of sun a day. So
yeah, at least. The only place that it's not growing very well is where the water is blowing the wind is blowing the chlorinated fountain water. I don't know what I'm going to do there, but
build a wall. If we need to keep stuff out, we got to build walls.
Don't say
apparently.
That.
Well, I mean, I'm just telling you. It's the mindset we have around here, I guess. But yeah, I have it paired up with Bernera, and I love it. I love the blue foliage from the from the Carex with that chunky, silvery foliage from the Brenera, and I just love it. And that's that.
He loves it.
I love it. And the Carex Ever series, so there's a lot of different ones that fit into this. There's Everillo, there's Evergold, there's Ever this, there's Ever that.
Everest.
Any of those are going to be, you're going to get a lot of the like yellows and the greens and yellows and the cream whites and greens and the cream whites and yellow, you know, a lot of the different variegated ones. But these work nice, and I found that they seem like where I think I've used Everest, and it's really like kind of filling some areas in and stuff. But works really well in the shade garden.
Really brightens up the shade.
Yeah. There again, you know, pair this up with any of your shade perennials, the Breneras, the hostas, the astilbes, the acteas, any of that stuff. It's all of these Carexes are like utilitarian type plants where you're not just planting one as like, oh look, I planted my one Carex. You know, it's like a showy thing. You're doing this to kind of fill in voids in the shade garden and in mass and space fillers, and then planting it with other groupings of perennials. So Carex. Plant them.
Carex.
God, I feel like my enthusiasm over grasses is way more than it is over
but
regular perennials.
I just got done telling the folks, don't sleep on the grasses, but it's okay. You're the grass master.
Bonus round. So we talked about perennials. Let's hit on just a few strappy-like annual/tropical plants you would use in annuals.
Yeah, last week we came up with some chunky ones that you could like plant right into your perennial border to kind of help just like bring some big, bold, chunky annual color and foliage in.
Like cannas, bananas, alocasias, colocacias, all of that chunky.
Yeah, like a lot of rhyme in there.
Yeah.
Good.
A lot of chunky stuff.
Good. And we figured let's do the same thing with some of these strappy plants. So
well, hit me with it, bub.
Snake plant.
Sansevieria.
Which this is something you taught me because this is typically a house plant, right?
Yeah.
But we've been growing it in Dublin. You planted it in full shade, which makes sense, but we grew some in full sun and it did pretty darn good.
So yeah, I knew it would work in the shade. But I saw a planting of it. It was Adam Woodruff had a planting of it in full ass sun, and I forget what he had it paired up with, but it was just like big old planting near a parking lot or something, and I was just like, wow, like I need that. Like, so I contacted him and I said, hey man, like I love this idea, I love this planting.
Wait, you contacted someone you didn't know and started having a conversation with them?
That's a novel idea, isn't it? Like,
I didn't know you had it in you.
Yes, I have.
Matt's never, just FYI, Matt's never met a stranger.
Yeah, so contacted Adam and I said, yo, I love this planting, but how are you growing this stuff in full sun? And he was just like, it'll do it. You know, you give it the water. He found it from a grower down in Florida that had started these things in the full sun, so that's all this plant ever knew. So it worked. I mean, and you used it and it worked?
It did. I did in planters in full sun. And I'm shocked as a child you weren't kidnapped. Like, just walk up to like the guy parked on the corner in the van and just be like, hey, mister, what you got in that van with no windows?
So I know what you're saying, but here's the thing. When I was younger, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, she was usually around. And if she wasn't, you've also got to remember we grew up around military bases. So, you know, if you're living on a military base, like you would hope that there's not some like kitty fiddler that's trying to come and pull you into the ice cream truck kind of a thing.
I've seen some military based datelines before, so I wouldn't go that far.
Okay,
like,
fair enough.
But
fair enough.
Just
I don't know any strangers, people. But yeah,
now I digressed.
So snake plant. And it's a cheap plant, in my opinion, that you can use. What's great about it is you go out, you plant it, you use it for this just erect, vertical, chunky, spiky, crazy foliage that sticks up out of the ground, adds awesome texture and dimension to the landscape. And then before it starts getting cold out, dig it up out of the ground and bring it inside and have a nice house plant through the wintertime. Because these things are like no-brainer. You can give them the worst light. You can give them a lot of light. you can just abuse them with the watering. Like, you can forget to water them pretty much all winter long, and they're going to be just fine. And then next year you can take them back out and reuse them. When they start to spread some, you just divide them and give them away. Now, I will say, if you're in the South, I want to say that this is listed as an invasive in Florida. So if you're in the South listening, like, maybe not a good idea. You need if you're using these things in the landscape, they need to be used in an area that's going to be colder than their hardiness, so that you're forced to dig them out or they will die. Because in these other areas, these things spread like freaking crazy.
And there's a lot of things Matt and I are starting to think about not using because it's becoming invasive. But these are things that are real borderline with our zone, you know? Mm-hmm. If you're in Ohio, snake plant is not going to be invasive anytime soon. Like, that's a sure bet.
Correct.
I knocked on wood. But until we become a tropical location, let's not worry about that.
Yep, Zone 6B is...
B?
We're still good. So, sorry, my drink went down the wrong pipe, and I've got, like, a tickle in my throat now, but...
Go like this. that help?
Not really, but... Vertigo penstemons, another one that we use.
Pennisetum.
Pennisetum, Vertigo pennisetum.
You get excited about grasses.
Big, strappy grass foliage that takes on these deep burgundy hues.
We talked about this one a couple weeks ago during our annuals talk. So,
yeah,
yeah,
we'll talk about it because I know I know that you've used it. I personally haven't used it. I love it though.
Huge ornamental grass, great if you have a huge spot in the garden or like a really big planter to use it in. But I'm talking like 5-6 feet tall. It's marketed as 8 feet tall. Probably going to be more like 8 feet in the south, but huge dark purple burgundy leaves that just help, create a really nice backdrop for all the bright colors.
So it's a real thriller, if you will.
Sure is.
Okay.
Sure is, bub.
And last but not least, we wanted to throw one more tropical-ish to our zone, not hardy, but something that could still be planted in the landscape to add this strappy foliage and some color, and that would be bromeliads.
Bromeliads.
I've used them. I've got some in the ground this year, but you're just going to get these different colors of foliage. Real strappy, adds a really cool texture to the garden, and then they get that cool. Hell, is that even is that a flower?
It's almost like it fades as you go down. Like some of the leaves are half bright red or yellow or orange, and some of them are.
Yeah, but what the hell is the thing on top? That's like, is that a flower?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
We're gonna call it a flower. I really don't know a lot about bromeliads. I just know that they do cool things in the garden. But you can get them with like these crazy, colorful flower-looking things on top. People are probably rolling their eyes because we don't know what we're talking about with bromeliads, but whatever. We're not from.
I know that they're really
regions.
Commonly used in interior scapes because so that can tell a lot about what its light requirements, and you can get a lot of bright color in the shade with that.
So super cool. A lot of cool colors of the foliage too. So
yeah,
sweet. How you feeling, Debbie?
I'm feeling good. I think that was a good strappy list.
Strappy indeed. So that does it for part 2 of this.
It does.
Stay tuned for...
We're going to come at you hard with part 3.
Real hard.
But that's not going to be for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're going to have a week off.
But the following week. So stay tuned for part 3. We're looking forward to it, and we can't wait to catch up with you all.
Yeah.
And
sorry for the gap in weeks, but we need a break too sometimes.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry.
Oh, okay.
So... All right, peeps. Love you harder. +2.
Love you.
+2.
+2. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.